Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Furi. So we just defeated a sword and shield boss with his kid apparently just living on this floor in this reality with him, and the kid I guess ran off. I kind of think we may see him as we leave. Doesn't really seem like there's a way to interact with the kid, either to try and spare him in some way or try and kill the kid so he doesn't come back for revenge. There is definitely a philosophy here to think deeper about, I think, in that you really should ask yourself, or we should ask the character to ask himself, what does the universe owe him and what does he owe the universe? Because we already know that he's seemingly not from the same planet that he is on or above, and so he doesn't even seem like, as an alien, like he shares even the same solar system. So there's very little connection there. On one hand, it seems like the noble thought is to always do what you think is the best for the most people, and just play a normal numbers game. Although in this scenario, what would be best for most people, even after the first boss battle, would have been to just go back to your prison cell and allow them to keep you tortured and locked up there forever. How much do you value your freedom? So far, we've proven we value our freedom at the cost of the life of the first jailer, and then the second jailer, and then the third jailer, and then the fourth jailer, and now a fifth jailer. So, would you kill 10 people to free yourself just to have the freedom to go where you want and do what you want? Most people would offhandedly go, no, I'd never kill anybody ever. But honestly, it is a deeper philosophical question than it seems like. Part of the problem is in modern days, most people agree on one philosophy, whereas in the ancient Greek days in particular, there was a lot of discussion about philosophy and a lot of deep thinking on it and a lot of different ways of thinking. And doing what is best for you is still practiced quite a bit in modern times. It's just not preached. It's what's preached is always sacrifice. Always do what is for the greater good, even though you can't even prove that you know what the greater good is in most scenarios. But inherently, there's no way to also prove that the overall greater good wouldn't be for individual beings to do what is just good for them. And so, yeah, you could definitely have some deeper thoughts in the game. Unfortunately, I don't think the game has that much story to have deeper thoughts on the game like that. And it opens up the door, certainly, to a little bit better writing if you wanted to do that, where you could have had the main protagonist at least question these things, or ask the player to question these things. Instead, the game has mostly just given us cool action sequences in the fights that they're trying really hard to animate, and cool music in these walk and talk sections, just kind of glorifying violence. And at a certain point, there is a philosophy that maybe might makes right, and thus you are justified in your actions because you are the superior being amongst all of these jailers. Of course, most people would not buy into that argument when spoken aloud. Yeah, it would be kind of nice to have a questioning character.
Upstairs, arrogant, self-righteous, and cool. That's her. She started it all. She even got me locked up.
Now, while we've seen a bunch of characters with some kind of magical ability, none of them really seem like they have the ability to create these worlds. So it almost feels like there should be a character that created the worlds for each of these jailers.
You're going to see her little show out there. All this nobility and self-sacrifice. But really, she's just trying to clean up her mess.
I am going to admit, I have seen a little bit of this game before, so it's not a coincidence per se that I'm talking about philosophy, and we are in the middle here going to be given a bit of a choice. And a
Just
little
remember,
bit touch on it.
She's messing with your head. Don't listen to her.
This is twice now that this guy, who is clearly messing with your head or trying to influence you with his words, has told you not to listen to other people. And then we have for the first time a broken path, whereas the rest of the worlds seem to have more natural barriers. Then you have these kind of angelic looking characters. Boy, is that a different color with the rays of light. I imagine each one of these little walk and talk sections was planned to be something much greater, and at the very least they were little experiments in making level design that very quickly got tossed out. I could imagine that a game like this could have easily gone the way of so many other games and just been in development hell forever, so that they would just try to add more and more content.
Your anger, your instinct. You don't belong here.
Yeah, and while I have said
From me.
that, while I have said this game definitely could use a lot more content, it's better that they had a finished product first. The camera controls here swapping, and the movement controls swapping like crazy.
Walk with me. It was all a mistake. The cell, the restraints, the guardians. We can make this right. You can't go to my world, but you can be free here. Look at what I'm offering. This can be your home. I'll take care of you.
So she's offering you a gilded
I'll
cage.
tell you the tales of my world. You will tell me yours. There is so much to enjoy here.
Problem here, though, is you don't even know if our character understands what's being said.
Stay with me.
So you take the gilded cage, and I think you get an achievement. So
Come on, give it a chance. What's the big hurry?
let's see what happens if we just try and sit down. Like, I don't really know how to sit down. Like, A walks you away,
Stay with me.
but there's no button.
Come on, give it a
I got an
chance.
achievement for
What's the
lighting
big
up my
hurry?
armor by pressing Y. Interesting. So I seemingly can't stay with her even if
Stay
I
with me.
wanted to. Because there's just like no... I have no
Come
button.
on, give it a chance. What's the big hurry?
So the problem here is the game hasn't even given me a thought, a prompt, or
Stay with
taught me how to potentially stay with her. You would think
Come on, give it a chance.
it would be
What's the big
sitting
hurry?
down. But if I hit right bump, I start walking. If I hit right trigger, I start walking. If I hit A, I start walking. B does nothing. Y lights up
Stay
your
with me.
armor.
Come on, give it a chance. What's the big hurry?
It's almost as if the game isn't actively arguing against trying to get this achievement, but I swear there's a way this actually happens.
Stay with me.
And it's funny because it is tempting the game quite a. It's tempting the player
Come on, give it a
in
chance.
particular
What's the big hurry?
to sit down and hear some story, which I'm kind of desperate for, in fairness.
Why are you leaving? What's not to like here? Stay with me.
Finally, I guess you have to walk away then walk back.
What a wise decision you've made. We're not so different after all. There is kindness in you. My people will thrive. I will be their hero. You will be taken care of. Our garden will blossom. I will give you more each and every day. I will be yours.
So she's basically
Let's rejoice.
sacrificing her life to save her people, prostituting herself effectively for the betterment of her people, which definitely has happened in the past, certainly. And most recently, like in Vietnam and in areas like that, where you have army men effectively falling in love with and taking wives from Vietnamese girls who then can make way more money and send money home to their family by pretending to be in love, or in part being half in love with the army men, or truly being in love with them, who's to say. So it is a interesting split, certainly, there in that, because the previous person you fought against, he was fighting for his son, and clearly all these jailers, except for the crazy ones before, and they've worked very hard to put different people in certain orders so that it doesn't become a scenario where the next person has a less noble of a reason to fight. It's obviously the first jailer was a sadist and just enjoyed torturing you, and so that's like the least noble. And then the second jailer was crazy, so second least noble. And then third jailer was crazy and wanted vengeance, so maybe a little bit more noble there, just because he was not as crazy, I guess. But yeah, had she been the boss first, and then you fought against the guy doing it for his kid, then the guy trying to protect his kid, or protect the world for his kid, would not be able to say you have nothing. Well, you could certainly say it still. He could say you gave up everything by not staying with the lady. It's a very human way of thinking when we know that this character is not particularly human at all. And he's being depicted certainly as this unknowable character, this unknowable creature. If you replace the image of our protagonist from being a humanoid ninja guy into a xenomorph from the Aliens movies, it would be way more obvious. I guess this is a Unity game, so pretty much all the walk and talk and scenery areas are almost certainly asset flips from the Unity store. Which, frankly, that's a lot of games. Maybe over half of all games of a certain age. Does this feel like a satisfactory ending? Absolutely not. Congratulations, you've chosen to stop fighting and a peaceful resolution. It's a fighting game. Like, if you're given the option to stop fighting in a fighting game, you've done it wrong. There are certainly a few times in games where it does feel like it might be nice or appropriate to have an ending where you can just stop fighting and stop violence, but the truth is almost every video game,
Kill him, and you'll be free.
Almost every video game out there has violence as its core gameplay mechanic, and it's because it's easy and because it makes sense. And so in choosing that, we have apparently reset the whole game. Let's just double check. Load game.
And you'll be free.
Well, seems like by making that choice you really have to commit to it, and there really isn't just a there really isn't a save option that I've ever seen. You just wouldn't expect there to be a save option.
Every step you've taken.
So we're on Promenade difficulty. Let's just see what this first fight really is like. It's probably super easy in comparison to what we have been doing. He does have actually a fairly large amount of cycles here and rounds, and I imagine that is just because this is supposed to be a thing. Now the weird thing here is that he really is about the only person that he's about the only person though that I've been able to really use charge shots on or charge slashes on. And he's about the only character of any of them that really does just stop attacking. If there was a system here where you were trying for like an achievement around taking no damage in the entirety of a fight, I would imagine he would be about the only character you could really do that for.
It's time to get serious.
There, I just got another achievement. I still feel like though I probably am not going to get.
They really hurt, don't they? Well, that was nothing. I'm gonna teach you some real pain.
So This does allow you to see the sadism of this character in contrast to the soft-spoken nature of the boss who effectively defeated me by offering a gilded cage. Yeah, weirdly, I'm still not able to really counter his attacks, and he should be the easiest of all the characters to counter, and yet I'm still struggling on this. I'm still just not sure if I'm supposed to always counter. Like, I guess technically I'm always supposed to counter until I get to the yellow part. See, I don't think there's like a dash here I'm supposed to do to attack this guy. So I'm probably just too close. Just like one bullet hit. It still highlights major problems with yeah, and you just have to wait until he's done in that sequence, until he stops being orange. All these colors really should be like fairly repeated things.
Way down there lies a free world. A world of peace and light, where you're free as the wind. And you know what? We're going to get there.
The question here is, do we lose anything if we just go into invincible mode right now? And
I'll tell you what I know on the way. But don't expect all the answers. It's all about what a man does.
They're basically telling you the whole premise of the game. It's about what you do. That's the only answers to the story, really. So, if you're not really losing anything from going to invincible mode and just skipping fights, then there is a decent argument to just skip the next few fights and go back to where we were. On the other hand, they've intentionally made it so you potentially get a taste of playing the game a second time if you decide to walk back, which I can see a lot too high of a percentage of players accidentally walking back and getting those credits and then being upset that their save file is effectively destroyed. The proper way to do that by any means would have been to have the continue save file continue at the place you were at.
They had to build all these layers so she couldn't get out. And you couldn't hear her scream.
But yeah, even trying to speedrun this without using the invincible mode to skip the entire fight or parts of the fight, it's still really, really slow with the walk and talks. And you still have the concern here in that because there was a continue button, it's going to let you continue in promenade mode, when arguably it should pop up and offer the idea that you should play it in normal mode and just say, hey, you've made it this far in promenade mode, maybe you should go back and try that. Like, you've probably gotten a lot better at this since the beginning of the game, although I don't know if you really have gotten that much better since the beginning of the game, because every boss battle is fairly bespoke. It's unique to each of the enemies, and each of them have their own attack stance, and they don't really evolve enough to the point where it feels like they are the same attacks but done better for each jailer. Each jailer's attack is almost 100% exclusively theirs. And see, on a certain thought, if it was just making me walk back to where I was, instead of making me fight all the enemies, that would probably be punishment enough for picking the wrong choice or walking backwards on accident. There definitely is a certain thought that this boss battle in particular may still be fairly difficult. In the promenade mode, this was the boss battle I had to go to promenade mode for. And so you have 3 or 4 rounds. If it's a thing that yellow is supposed to be the sign of when you can attack, the yellow and the orange all need to be way more consistent. Yeah. This character's a little weird in that once it breaks its arms free, once she breaks her arms free, she's not going to unbreak her arms free and reset. And weirdly, this is a case where the character is really encouraging you to dodge more than do damage, and you just kind of don't dodge that much after this boss battle. And at this point you're almost encouraged to chase after them. Go. Find something that will catch her attention. So, yeah, you just don't have these kinds of walls in any of the other fights. You don't have this level of dodge. in any of the other fights. You do quite a bit of damage here, I would say, on this character compared to later characters, which that speaks to something, I would say, as far as her being easier, but she may really be more of a case that she's just easier and takes more damage just because they wanted her to be easier and take more damage. Meanwhile, I don't know if there's anything I'm even supposed to do. I can't even see myself on the screen. I feel like the camera has moved in such a way that I'm slightly below where the camera is. And I see now the idea is to straight up just damage her. It's so crazy that the back button does a pause in this game. For the most part, when a game doesn't really support the back button, it just doesn't do anything. It's a fairly brutal attack also to be mentioned here, and it looks like you're basically just slicing her throat. So we're accomplishing basically nothing here. And as long as our health is at full, it's really not doing anything. And I think she's still orange and invincible here. So this really, I think, is still just a dodge sequence where you're not really doing anything until you get to this point. There's far too many sequences like this where you're just waiting. You're just waiting till you can actually hit the person. And yeah, if they're just gonna go into a loop where you have to hit the counter and perfectly time that counter multiple times, this isn't fun per se. It just really isn't. And see, this sequence here, I don't think in any way can let me refill my tank and get a reset. Like, no amount of collecting these refills any one of those tanks. I don't even remember how I beat this the first time. I would suspect a trick is that you don't take 2 hits on your life bar multiple times. But I'm not sure that even matters, because when you get into this sequence, does it reset your health? Doesn't seem like it does. And maybe when he was charging up there, I should have dashed at that point and attacked. And see, you have a cool action sequence where you kill her when maybe you didn't actually need to kill her. Well, no, you did. From the looks of it, you couldn't have moved on to the next section.
You put her out of her misery.
Although it feels like the bunny guy is definitely phrasing it in such a way
She crashed through one day, frantically
like
searching
you would
for something.
mercy killing her.
They couldn't make sense of her. She was so wild. So they put her in a cage. Then you came along and they did even worse. Way worse. It all went so wrong. But we are going to make things right again. Together.
There is an opposite story here, certainly, on what does this world look like in its history, as they seemingly just compromise their morals over and over again, doing increasingly cruel imprisonment, torturous imprisons for these creatures.
Can you feel it? It's like a dream. The breeze, the peace.
It almost feels like they couldn't
we could
kill
take
any
off
of these
and
jailers,
leave this place behind
or
us.
didn't want to. And you're the only one that could.
But you know better. Nothing is what it seems. We're stuck here, and the real world is somewhere else, down there.
It almost would make sense that each of these people you're fighting was at one time an ally of the main protagonist, and that they had betrayed you, and now you have a revenge story instead of a more generic prison escape story. And just pressing A and letting this auto walk makes it take a lot less time and is visually better looking than having the player try and figure out the direction to push the left analog stick.
The old man coming up. There's more to him than meets the eye. A master of time, so they say. But if he's such a master, if he saw it all coming, why didn't he do something about it? Why didn't he stop it from happening? Or at least warn me? But look where we ended up.
Yeah, it almost feels like the bunny character is more seeking revenge and just using you, this silent assassin. If anything, I would say this game is probably a little too inspired by maybe a spaghetti western style of movie, or just old samurai films, potentially pre-audio silent movies.
We are definitely not cool with this. We are getting out of here.
There almost certainly were samurai movies that were made silently, or mostly silently, because they just didn't want to translate it from, say, a Japanese language to English. And yeah, I could see that
Time to move on.
making
Go cross his path, my friend.
a good reason
Jailer is the key.
to have silent protagonists in some of those movies. But yeah, as a video game though, there are modern expectations, and one of the modern expectations certainly is your protagonist really just can't be this emotionless, silent character. Not to this level. Let's see if we can beat this guy fairly quickly. And see, this is just on promenade mode, 2 phases. So it's fairly easy. Like one whole phase just finished there.
Comes perspective.
So that's phase 1. We have all these orange orbs. And we'll just, I don't know if we're
Seek joy in these last breaths.
really doing anything here. This is really the last time though we have a gimmick of sorts. Like, and you would think at the beginning here, seeing all these gimmicks back to back, that would mean it would be gimmicks for all the boss battles, but it's not really feeling like that's the case. Feels very much instead that the last few bosses of the game are mostly normal characters that are maybe just a little bit stronger. Yeah. I guess the only thing that would really mess up here is if you manage to not be able to defeat one of those 2 cycles. It's just way too easy of a section, though, on promenade mode. If anything, it
is no fate. We build our own destiny.
Really does just indicate, though, that
Our man on the rocks.
he can
knew a lot.
perceive time
He even figured
rewinding
out why you were sent to
when
us.
you probably shouldn't be
Look
able to
at the
perceive it
sky,
or
he kept saying.
move
The dot
in the
on
time.
sun, but no one listened.
Alright, and so this now just creates that weird point here where I would feel fairly acceptable to just turn on invincible mode and then use the invincible mode command to skip a fight completely, or turn myself invincible. But you know, we're doing fine, and I do feel like this is just an experience that you might very well have playing this game, is that you may choose to walk backwards and then get a game over and then have to start all over again. Now, the good news is I don't think that there really are any other split path endings, that is just kind of an Easter egg ending. But I would say it was far too easy. It really needed to pop up a question, press A to confirm, press B to cancel type confirmation box of, do you want to stay here forever in this, and perhaps you even use the phrase gilded cage forever, and never attempt and not continue to escape and stop fighting, or however you want to phrase it. But without that confirmation, it's just too easy, and it does create this very weird situation. There isn't really a great reason to get good at the first half of the boss battles. Honestly, that may be more than the first half. I wouldn't be surprised if the lady who with the halo around her head, the angel lady, is, let me think this through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that she may be one of 4 remaining bosses that I can think of off the top of my head. So, yeah. We may have been kind of closer to 2/3 of the way done than halfway through the whole game. Ending that way almost, again, makes an argument that there should be a roguelite element to this, where by getting that ending, I gain extra armor and take less damage in all future playthroughs. Just getting any ending should potentially give me extra armor or extra damage to make it easier to play it on normal mode for people who are going to struggle at that. And yeah, I severely question whether even playing against these bosses twice and showing that I can beat these bosses fairly easily now after learning their tricks, it's probably not really helping me much if I was to try to play it in the normal difficulty, let alone if I could beat the game on normal difficulty to unlock the hard difficulty. Anyways, this really has been just 2 steps back completely in this episode. We've lost progress, which that's a crazy thing to happen, certainly. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's a link down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.